right, here we go. Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, it's fall. And you know what fall is?
What?
My favorite time of year.
Yes.
Why?
Because it's my birthday and your birthday?
Yes, exactly why. But there. It's football season.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State, what do you see there on the right? The head of Frankenbrutus, which you made me for one of my birthday cakes, and I saved the head and I have it on display.
It actually looks pretty good.
It looks fantastic. It doesn't age. It's beautiful. Is that modeling chocolate you made that out of?
Yes.
It's fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, so we're making other things today. Oh, small homage. That's college football, Buckeyes.
Homage.
Did I say homage? Did I?
Yeah.
Homage.
Homage.
Sorry about that. Okay, so a little for the NFL. Brownie and Paul Tatar made me that button of the great autogram. You know autogram, right?
No.
Of course not. Okay, so let's get to caking.
Let's get to caking.
Now you're fit.
It's
Now
Tuesday.
You're happy. We talk about football, you're not happy. But
It's Tuesday. The kids are at school. The little one's at school for 4 hours, and I'm off with you.
Yeah.
And so this is what we're doing on Tuesday.
Hooray, VPK!
Actually, we got to make this cake because it's Sophia's birthday cake. Otherwise, we'd be doing other fun stuff together, like going to have lunch or something.
Right.
But it's Sophia's birthday, so I thought I would do a back to basics video, Cake Baking 101. And I know all of you know how to make a good cake. I'm going to teach you, hopefully, how to make a great cake for stacking and decorating and tiered cakes. Because I know you guys can make a good cake that tastes great and looks beautiful, but when it comes to stacking tiered cakes, we need a little bit more, okay?
You need support, right?
We're not going to talk about support today, but we're talking about making good cake for stacking.
Gotcha, let's do it.
All right, so here are the fundamentals, all right? Tip number 1.
Pro tip number 1.
Pro tip number 1. Or is it going to be in this direction? Tip number 1.
Whatever you think.
Tip number 1. All right, tip number 1 is your mise en place or your prep. Everything has to be ready, which means my ovens are on, my eggs have been out, and now we're coming at room temperature. My butter has been out. Unless the recipe calls for something cold, you're going to take your dairy out to come to room temperature. All my ingredients are laid out in my kitchen. I have some here and some over on this side, but really everything is ready to go. So I am not running to the pantry or to the fridge or to the supermarket for anything.
And what is that called?
Mise en place.
Which is French for everything has its place.
Everything in its place.
Everything in its place.
Okay?
Mise en place.
Right. So not only, well, that was a terrible pronunciation.
Just continue,
Okay.
please.
Not only is
Critique
this
me.
going to help you not forget to get any ingredients, not only is it going to help you work faster, but probably the most important thing is it's going to make sure you don't forget any of the ingredients when you're baking your cakes. If your eggs are already laid out in front of you, you're not going to forget to put eggs in the cake batter.
Yeah,
okay?
say that 3 times.
Also, part of mise en place is reading your recipe through at least a couple of times. Why? Because as I did when I was younger and first started baking, you do not want to misplan your day, your baking day. You do not want to plan to make a cake when you don't have time to take it out of the oven before you have to go to work. That would be bad.
You do that quite often.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, but you did that quite often.
Because now I'm a pro.
That's right. Whatever you want to say.
That's mise en place. That is tip number 1. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and part of our mise en place is get our pans ready. So tip number 2.
Or are you going that way?
Because that's where our arrow is going to be.
Okay, there you go.
Tip number 2. That's where I'm going to type it.
Okay,
like put text.
Lower it.
Tip number 2.
Yeah, there you go.
We're going to get our pans ready. That's part of mise en place, but I think it's supposed to be a separate tip because our pans need to be properly prepared. I don't want you running around preparing your pans at the end because you need to get your cakes in pretty quickly to the oven. So, depending on the directions of your recipe, but most cakes are done, most cake pans are prepared well with parchment paper and a baking spray, or you may use butter, melted butter. I prefer the baking spray, it's just easier, okay? Parchment is good, very important. I buy these in pre-cut rounds. You can just cut them out of big sheets of parchment if you don't make cakes that often. It's not worth it to you to buy the pre-cut round circles. Okay? Another part of our cake preparation is this. This is a heating rod. There are all kinds of ways to heat the center of your cake so that your cake bakes evenly. There is a heating rod, there is a heating core, and people have also used flour nails or flour tips, which I don't like. They're not thick enough, they're thin metal, I don't think they work. This is not my favorite. It creates a big fat hole in the cake.
Yeah, you got a big hole.
I mean, it works, but not my favorite. My favorite is a heating rod. Whoopsie.
Whoa, hello.
From Fat Daddios, I love these things. Okay.
What is it called? A heating rod?
Heating rod.
Gotcha.
If you are ever making a cake that is deeper than 2 inches, example 3 inches, or wider than 10 inches, use at least one heating rod. We're going to use one for my 3-inch pan.
That'll make sure the middle cooks nice and evenly.
Correct. So baking evenly is very important. Number
not cooks, but bakes even.
Bakes.
I said cooks,
I say
didn't
bakes.
I said cooks. My
Okay.
bad. My bad.
If you have a baking pan that is a sheet pan or that is, very wide, rectangular, use more than one of these. These need to be sprayed as well, so not just the pan. So what I do, lightly spray the whole pan, parchment, circle on the bottom. By the way, if you are making a naked cake and you need the sides of your cake to look perfect, also line the sides of your cake pan.
Don't just spray.
Don't just spray, so that it comes out perfectly even and you don't get anything stuck to the sides. Then spray the rod. Done.
Yeah, see, you're very efficient today. I really
Well,
like
I'm
it.
trying to make this speedy so that people don't get bored.
And I'm trying not to talk too much, so it's not too long.
Well, you're doing fine.
Thanks, I appreciate
All right,
that.
so today we're making a 5-inch tier, which is going to be my chocolate mud cake. I plan on getting approximately 5 inches out of these cakes. It's not going to be exactly 5 inches because cakes do shrink. That's okay because you need room for your filling. So it will be 5 inches once it's filled and frosted. Okay? So that's my cake pans. One more thing for the cake pans. Okay, cake strips. Bake even cake strips. Now, I don't use these anymore. Why? Because I run through so many cakes in one day. It's not worth my extra time to try to wrap each one of these cakes. But it is helpful. So today I'm going to show you what a cake bakes like with a bake even strip or without. You won't get a dome if you use this, which is nice because then you don't have to trim a lot off the cake. These need to be soaked in water. So before you're even taking care of your pan, soak these in water. Keep these in water till it's time to put your cake in the oven. Wring it out, wrap it, stick it in the oven.
And that makes it so it's flat with no dome.
Why? Because
Why?
the heat is, most cakes, most everything, will get baked on the outside faster. And then the inside will start to explode up because that's where the heat goes. If we keep the cake heat even around the pan, it will bake evenly and not dome up.
And it will be flat.
Correct.
Nice.
All right, so that is your mise en place for your pans. I'm going to put these aside.
Okay, let's tape a little. The microwave's on. That's the chocolate's melting. So.
Right, so we're melting
Yep.
some chocolate and butter while we proceed. All right, tip number 3.
Not 2? Oh,
No,
the
we're on
cake
number
pan's
3.
2. Okay, number 3.
Tip number 3.
3.
Scale is your best friend in the baking kitchen. The best, most important piece of equipment you can own. Do not use cups and volume measures and all that stuff. If you need to use a teaspoon for some salt, fine. But everything needs to be done on this scale.
Weight.
Why? It's more accurate, it's more reliable, it's reproducible, and you can scale up very easily when you are dealing in weight and grams.
Grams,
So-
right? Grams is the way to go.
Correct. So I have my handy dandy recipe here that I've been using for years that I've marked up, and on the right here I made a little graph for myself. So if I want to double the batch, if I want 1.5 batches, it's all in grams. Super easy peasy.
We're back for step.
Well, we're not on tip.
Oh, we're not on
another
the pro tip?
yet.
Okay.
Not another tip yet.
All right, where are we?
So right now we've got chocolate and butter melted together, and I'm just going to proceed with the recipe. We're just going to walk through making a mud cake. By the way, if you want my recipe, it is on my website, www.thecakedoctor.com, D-R, not D-O-C-T-O-R, thecakedoctor.com, and just look for chocolate mud cake. Also, please, don't forget to subscribe if you like my cake videos.
Make sure you put it on your left-hand side, because it's going to look funny if you're pointing this way. It's
Well, then it'll look funny.
Yes, it will. What's she pointing at?
Okay. All right, so here we go. We've got chocolate and butter, and to this I'm adding sugar. So just going through the normal steps that everybody knows. I'm making 1.5 batches today.
And you're pouring sugar right out of the can because you're pouring by weight.
That's right.
Not a cup of sugar.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so easy, since I'm doing 1.5 batches. I can pour right in, as long as I'm not a doofenshmirtz and pour too much or too quickly, then that would be a mistake.
That's right.
Okay, so then we're going to mix this up really quick, and then next thing we're going to add is cocoa.
Cocoa or coca?
What?
Is it cocoa? You're adding cocoa?
Yes, cocoa powder.
Okay, so.
I'm adding Dutch cocoa powder, actually.
All right.
All right, so cocoa powder. All right, so I find it helpful once I'm done with each ingredient to set it aside. That way I know I'm done with the sugar, done with the cocoa, and it also frees up some of my space.
Okay.
So, just wipe off my hands here, and we're gonna give this a quick stir.
Mm-hmm. That came a little closer. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I like that.
So we're just incorporating the cocoa and the sugar. Don't worry that the sugar is not dissolved yet, because we're going to be adding hot cocoa. Sorry, not hot cocoa.
No.
Hot coffee in a minute.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. So
not hot cocoa.
Okay.
We're going to add hot coffee to the cocoa. This is what makes it a mud cake. Coffee brings out the taste of chocolate, and a mud cake is by nature more tender, more almost gooey-like cake. Not a gooey cake, but it's gooier than a soft buttermilk cake.
But it's not a lava cake.
No, it's not a lava. So I've already weighed out my coffee and it's hot, so I'm going to add it gradually to my batter here. Or I should say my chocolate mixture. Not a batter yet.
We need to add something to make it a batter, don't we?
Right.
And that is?
Well, batter implies flour, eggs, all
right.
of that.
I would always say batter is eggs and flour.
So this is melting the sugar.
Yes.
Okay, good. I like to keep a little plate here with all my utensils so that they're not scattered all over my workplace, making a mess. We need to keep it clean. Keep your workspace clean. Tip number 4.
Is that it? Keep
Yeah.
your workspace clean?
Keep your workspace clean. Clean as you go, which I'm a pro at.
Oh my God, that's the yeah.
And set yourself up for success. So start off with the right ingredients in the right place at the right time. Set yourself up for success. All right, cake success. Okay, so that's done. We're gonna actually add our eggs, and we're gonna actually add vanilla now. So to this, we are adding, let me just double check here, 22.5 grams. So I don't even need to measure out my vanilla, because, whoop, scale had a little hiccup there. Hang on, okay. Okay.
Good?
Yes.
All right.
All right, so I'm gonna add my vanilla straight to this. Okay.
And you're really good with measuring by weight because you
Well,
seem
I
to
was
be
off a couple grams, but it's okay.
a couple grams.
A couple grams of vanilla is not gonna hurt me.
And that's real vanilla extract.
Yeah,
We've talked about what's artificial.
I like real vanilla extract.
Well,
Okay, so I'm adding the eggs, all right? And when I have a lot of eggs, like in this batch, I'm using 6 eggs. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it in a separate measuring cup and stir it up just briefly, just to make it easier when I start to incorporate it into my mixture here, so I don't have to chase after those little egg yolks. So it's already a little bit mixed. I'm gonna add it gradually here. nice and combined. Okay, and the key here, why do we want to get this mixed really well? Because in a minute, we're going to add this to flour. And with a cake that is supposed to be nice and tender and moist and light, you do not want gluten to be formed in excess. We're not making bread. So once we add the wet to the flour, we don't want to be sitting there stirring to make sure the wet ingredients have been combined. We want to stir the wet ingredients first. Otherwise, if we're sitting there trying to combine it with the flour, we're forming gluten. We're making a tough cake.
You're making strands of gluten by the extra
Yeah, by
beating,
the extra
right?
beating.
Yeah.
So beat it first before you add wet to dry. Okay, we're going to take a minute and get ready to do the dry.
That's almost a pro tip in itself. Beat it first before you add the wet to dry.
I guess.
Mini pro tip.
Sure.
Go ahead and say it.
Mini pro tip.
We're back here.
Okay. Pro tip number 5.
Five.
Okay. Use a, oh my gosh, what's this called?
Strainer.
Thank you. Use a strainer. Sift your ingredients that are clumped. So my baking soda will clump, my baking powder will clump. Do not stick it into your batter clumped. You'll get little pieces of baking powder coming up at the edges of your cake, which are yucky and not attractive. So we need today baking powder. We're going to run that through this strainer. We've got 7.5 grams of baking powder. Okay, and then we need 13.5 of baking soda, so I'll just zero out or tear my scale. 13.5. Okay, and my scale does not measure out to 0.5, so don't think that I've got a fantastic scale. It doesn't. I'll just estimate. Salt, 6 grams.
They have scales that go 0.5 grams.
Oh yeah, I have one of those.
Nice, I like that. Oh, nice.
That's for like when you're doing gelatin and stuff that needs to be very small amounts. Okay, I'm done with these. I'm going to put them aside, and I'm just going to push this through, and there you go. Very easy step.
And what are you pushing that through?
A sifter.
Yeah, or a strainer.
A strainer.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now we get to the fun part.
We sifted the dry.
We sifted the dry.
Right.
Okay. Meet Darth.
Darth Vader.
Darth, yes. We're going to mix up the dry ingredients very quickly for just a second.
On low.
Yeah. Okay. And then while we're doing that, we're going to add the wet, the chocolate mixture, in gradually.
And we add that gradually instead of just like dump it in.
Right, because then it'll clump at the bottom and won't get mixed in. It'll be like hot cocoa when you don't stir it.
Gotcha, dear. That's nice. That's kind of a mini tip.
Okay. Now, we're going to scrape the sides. See, we've got chocolate clumping. We need to scrape the sides, make sure chocolate is not clumping on the bottom. We're going to stir it on low to make sure it's completely mixed with wet and dry.
Now we're never going to go beyond.
We will go up
Oh.
for just a minute, but
Okay.
first I need to make sure everything is mixed.
Okay.
So you take your time to combine the ingredients. Now we're going to just turn it up for a minute. Literally a minute. Then we're done with the cake. We're going to put it in the oven in just a minute. Done.
Done.
Okay, we're just going to check it really quick to make sure it is homogeneous, not clumped at the bottom. And we're done. All right.
And voila.
And here goes tip number 6.
6. Pro tip 6.
Is the difference between a pro cake and a beginner cake. Scale out your pans. We're going to put these pans on the scale and we're going to weigh out the batter, okay? So, now
weigh the batter.
Yes, you
Yeah,
got
I
a
didn't
couple.
know that.
Okay. So when I started compiling all my favorite recipes and doctoring them and so on, I would weigh out a cup of batter and see how much it weighed, because if you go online and you look up sizes of cake pans, especially on the Fat Daddy-O's website, which is what I use exclusively, it will tell you how many cups of batter should go in each size cake pan. Not how many can go, because you can fill it to the top, but that's not what we want, because we're going to have an explosion. How many should go? So for a 8 by 2 inch cake pan, we'll use 3.5 cups of batter. Okay, and 3.5 cups of batter will get us just about to 2/3 of the pan. It'll give us room for expansion during baking. It'll be perfect for rise.
Room for the rise.
Room for the rise, not
like
expansion.
That. Room for the rise.
Okay, now you can do this a couple ways to figure out your recipe and how much each cup of batter weighs. You can pour it out into a cup and weigh it. Or if you don't want to go to that trouble, roughly speaking, a cup of batter for most recipes, not all, is about 250 grams. So for a 3.5 cup batter size for this pan, for an 8 by 2 inch pan, I am going to do 3.5 times 250, which is 875 grams. So I'm going to scale my cake pan to 875 grams. The reason why this differentiates a beginner baker from a pro baker is because your cakes will come out even and your layers will come out even, okay?
Nice.
And that's how they look so beautiful on Pinterest and Instagram.
Nice.
Weigh out your cakes.
Weigh them out. Let's do it.
You want to take it one step further too, so you don't want to make mistakes. Weigh out your pans by themselves. Write them down so you know how much all your cake pans weigh, so that if you have a mess up and the battery goes dead on your scale, you're not freaking out.
Wow, that's insanity right there.
But it's
obsessive. Yes.
It's science.
Yes, but a cake obsessive, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
875 grams.
Mm-hmm. My wife knows how much each of her cake pans weigh.
That's not true.
Oh, not true? Okay.
No, I have some of them written down. Not
I
all
say
of them.
that was disturbing. That's disturbing.
I'm not that disturbed.
Okay. You haven't committed them to memory?
No.
Okay. Well, I know how you love to bake.
I should.
Okay.
If I really wanted to save myself from disaster, I would have written them all down a long time ago.
Yep.
Because every once in a while the scale will have a burp, a hiccup, and it'll be like, oh no, and you have to start all over.
Right. Gotcha. So we're measuring this one out. Now, obviously, you don't fill it to the top because when.
So that's 875 grams, so it's about 2/3 full.
Nice.
We're going to give it a quick. Let me do that again since it was on camera. A quick that, and this one's ready.
That's
okay.
Like yeah. All right.
Now this one weighs. This one.
And you just drop it like that to remove air bubbles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. This one is a little bit large. So this one is a larger cakes pan. This is an 8 by 3.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to figure out how many grams of batter we need for an 8 by 3. It holds 5.25 cups of batter. 5.25 times 250 is?
I was told I would not have to do any math during this, so if you
It's
go
okay
ahead.
because I've already figured it out.
Okay.
1313.
Yeah, there's no way I'd figure that out.
So 1313.
It's beautiful.
All right, 13 grams.
Mm-hmm.
Just
And
FYI.
that you have your cake, what's that called, a cake rod or a heating rod?
Heating rod.
Heating rod is in that one because it's
Yes.
it's higher.
So I made a batch and a half. I have a little tiny bit left, which I'll use to make the little kiddos a little after dinner dessert cake. And just a 4-inch pan or a muffin pan or something. Anyway, so these are ready to go. I'm going to wrap this one in a cake strip. I don't have 8 by 3 cake strips, so I'm not going to wrap that one, and then we'll see what the difference is between the two cakes. These are going to go in the oven. Tip number 7.
7.
Okay, tip number 7 is your oven should go at the temperature recommended by your recipe, which is usually 350, unless you have a massive size cake, meaning massive volume or massive width, massive height or massive width. Then bring it down to 325. Bake low and slow, okay?
Low
and
slow.
that way you won't get a wonky cake that is like baked on the edges but not in the middle and all gooey.
Wow.
Okay?
This is experimentation. I mean, to get to this, right? To get to this part level.
Well, it's science.
Oh, okay. Science.
Yes.
Well, and science is experimentation.
Okay, tip number 8. Bake until it's well and baked in the middle. Meaning, that toothpick should come out with not wet crumbs, as some recipes call for. It's okay. Dry crumbs or nothing on the toothpick. The worst thing you can have is a cake that's underdone in the middle. I would rather you err on the side of over baking the edges a bit than have a gooey middle, which will be a mess for you when you're trying to decorate it.
Yes, because
Okay.
it will sink and problems all over,
Yes,
right?
yes. All right, so that's it for now. We're going to be back after the cakes are baked for the rest of the tips.
Bake the cakes! Okay, we're back, and this is 10 tips, and we're on tip number...
Tip number 9.
Number 9. Number 9?
Number 9. Number
Like
9.
the Beatles' White Album.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
do? Good
Yeah.
for you. I'm proud.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. We gotta finish this up because we've got kids to pick up from school. Our free time is over.
Done.
All right. So here are my 2 cakes that I baked. I wanted to show you that there's a difference between the one that I put a bake strip on. It did not have a dome, so it baked flat. This one did not have a bake strip on. It has a dome. There is a heating core, heating rod. There is a little bit of a difference, of course, between these 2 cakes, but you can see quite clearly that this baked flat. So if you have the time, you're not making hundreds of cakes a day, which most people aren't who are at home, then go ahead and use your bake strips, okay? And these cakes are done now. Tip number 9 is this. Keep the parchment paper on when you flip the cakes out. So you're going to let them cool in the pans for about 10 minutes, and then you're going to flip them out to finish cooling completely.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the parchment paper on. It's going to make it easier for you when you're transferring the cakes and stacking them and so on. Just peel them off right before you start making your tiered cake. Don't forget.
Don't forget to peel.
Yes.
Right.
Tip number 10, the
Number
final
10.
tip. Okay, it's going to get maybe a lot of shocking reactions from this. Wrap and freeze your cakes, even if it's just overnight. Wrapping tightly with 2 layers of plastic wrap and freezing your cakes will make for a better cake. You're all thinking there, she must be crazy.
Fresh cake, not
Fresh
frozen,
cake.
not frozen.
Fresh cake, but I want you to think about something. When you buy fruits and vegetables and you put them in your fridge one day, or you leave them out one day, and they've lost nutrients, they've lost their freshness. With cakes, it's a similar idea. You freeze dry, or you flash freeze vegetables and fruits. You are freezing this cake as soon as it cools, and that actually retains the flavor, retains the moisture. So it actually does the opposite. Even if I have a cake, which I do like this time, I'm making in 2 days from now, I am still gonna freeze these cakes overnight because it'll give me better flavor and moisture retention. So wrap them well with plastic wrap and 2 layers of plastic wrap and freeze them. When you're ready to thaw, put them in the fridge for 12 hours, depending on the size of the cake. But 12 hours is a good idea.
So a good slow thaw.
A good slow
through the
thaw,
refrigerator.
then take them out of the fridge. When you're ready to decorate, it will be easier to decorate a cold cake than a room temperature cake, and certainly not a warm cake. All right, so those are my 10 tips for creating
Dun dun dun! 10 tips!
my 10 tips for making your best cake. Okay, see you next time. I'm Sally, and my husband Steven is in the background.
Arrivederci.
Ciao.